Great. Good afternoon, everybody. Delighted to be here with you today and with those online who are watching us from afar. I want to just start out by saying a few words about CGIAR Collaborative Platform for Gender Research for those who may not be familiar with it. This is a platform that started in January 2017 and is running until the end of this year, December 2019. We have four main objectives. First of all is around raising the visibility and the profile of the gender research that's done throughout CGIAR, so across the 15 centers and the 12 research programs. Secondly, capacity development. Thirdly, developing a system-wide gender research agenda. And fourthly, partnership development. So what we're presenting today is really related to the system-wide gender research agenda. And it's to share with you work in progress, a report on crafting the next generation of gender research for CGIAR. So the objectives of the report, what we want to be doing is looking at the last 10, 20, 30 in some cases, depending on the theme, years of research being done within the CGIAR on different themes, to review that, to synthesize findings, to figure out, to take stock a little bit. What do we know about each of the themes, and to reflect on that. Secondly, we want to be challenging the boundaries and really stimulate some creative new thinking and new insights on these different thematic areas to push ourselves to really bring a different lens to what we're doing. And the third is setting the forward-looking research agenda. We're changing the question around gender and agriculture to look at what agriculture and natural resource management research can do to advance gender equality in its own right. And I'll say a bit more about that. So we're flipping this question around the typical framing of gender and agriculture research, which has been, or generally is, how does gender analysis, or what does gender analysis bring? How does it contribute to agricultural development and natural resource management? So the focus is often on using gender research, using a gender lens to increase productivity, to improve efficiency, and to have more or better uptake of technologies that are developed. So we're really turning that around to ask how do agricultural and natural resource management contribute to achieving gender equality? So really getting that turnaround, which is not easy. It's looking at all of the evidence that's been generated over the years, but with a different perspective. So we have, over the past few years, we've been really working again around this cross CGIAR gender research agenda, looking at themes that cut across the different centers, the different programs, and we've come up with 9 that we think are important for this particular publication. So we're looking at how agriculture and natural resource management can advance gender equality through, first of all, through breeding programs, so looking at the gender and breeding work that's being done. Secondly, through seed systems, so looking at gender and seed systems research, value chain development, natural resource governance, nutrition-sensitive agricultural programs, climate change mitigations or climate smart agriculture. We examine the evidence on the feminization of agriculture with this lens, looking at what's been done around assessing women's empowerment, qualitative and quantitative methods that have been used, and lastly, engaging with constraining norms through gender transformative approaches. So today you're going to hear a little bit more about 5 of these different themes, the ones that are highlighted. Cheryl will introduce the speakers on that in a few minutes. But across all of them, we are using quite definitions that will be quite familiar to many of you around empowerment and gender equality. So when we talk about contributions of agriculture, natural resource management towards gender equality, we're talking about we're using the UN Women definition around that, so talking about equal rights, responsibilities, and opportunities for women, men, girls, and boys. We're looking at the interests, needs, and priorities of both women and men, that they're taken into consideration, and recognizing the diversity of different groups of women and men. so going beyond just gender, but also looking at other social categories. And seeing equality between women and men as a human rights issue and as a precondition for an indication of sustainable people-centered development. For empowerment, we are talking about the process by which those who've been denied the ability to make strategic choices in life can acquire that ability. And we're using Naila Kabir's definition around that, looking at resources, agency, and achievements. Each of the papers, each of the themes engages with these definitions in different ways. And I think we'll hear a little bit about that also from the speakers as they present what they're doing in their chapters. I'm not going to go into great detail around the conceptual framework that we're using across the different papers. It's a light conceptual framework, but we wanted to be able to position the chapters, the work that's being done in relation to a bigger story. So first of all, we're looking at this area here, looking at for each theme, is the work that we're doing, is the evidence around reaching women? Is it around benefiting women? Is it about empowering women? Or is it about transforming gender relations? So we want to hear something around that. A second is around the level of change. Is it around individual change? So changes that are happening for individual women, individual men. Is it about relational change, how women and men are engaging with one another, for example? Or is it more about systemic change? We're also looking at change as material or formal change, or as ideational. So for example, changes in gender norms, how people think about women and men and who they are and what they can do and what they can't do. We also are looking at the scale that the research has been done at and where it's engaging, and broader changes, so down here. So each of the papers, each of the themes engages in different ways. So an example here may be work around gender and breeding programs. There's been a lot of work done in this area in the last few years within CGIAR through the Gender and Breeding Initiative, for example. And what where they're working is really first around choices, women and men's choices and preferences in relation to particular traits, but they're also looking at, or what they're contributing is around institutional change, so changing the way the breeding is being done across the system. Yeah, so changing the way breeders and social scientists are working together. Another example could be the value chains work, and that's really looking at value chain participation and how participation in value chains contributes to women's empowerment, and what are the limits also of using that as an entry point. So these are the kind of things we're trying to get out around each of these themes, so we can work towards a new agenda on gender research that really pushes the boundaries a little bit further. So with that, I'll finish and I'll turn to Cheryl to introduce our next speakers. Thanks very much.